we had our overall target over here. But what was interesting about this trade is that even though our narrative on the higher time frame was bearish, our higher time frame bias was bearish, this was actually a really good sell trade. And I'm going to break this down, why this sell trade was so effective. Right, so it all comes from understanding where we are in terms of price, right? So notice how we have our Asian range over here, right? So this price action here on Thursday, sorry for the pause, was giving us this Asian range over here. But to give you some context, we had a fair value that was left over from Wednesday. So I'm always looking for previous day fair value gap. So this Wednesday fair value gap was resting over here, right? So this zone over here, this here was my main POI. So I was keeping an eye on this zone. The reason this zone is valid, again, is because it's left a 15-minute fair value gap. So we have a 15-minute fair value gap over here. And so we're waiting for price to react off this zone, right? So what makes a point of interest, or in this case, a demand zone, or even a supply zone, if we were to flip it on its head, what makes this valid in terms of the buyers and the sellers? Well, there's a few things, and we're going to be going over this in terms of the order flow. So the order flow is what we use to determine our entries, right? So let's just go over this in some context. If I take up the power of 3 indicator, let's start with the weekly power of 3, right? So what you see here, this big red candle is the weekly power of 3, right? So what we can see is the weekly candle opened here. Right, this is the weekly opening price all the way up here, right? This is the weekly opening price. So what you need to understand when you look at this, you need to understand that we are significantly below the weekly opening price, right? We are significantly below the weekly opening price. So what this means is you want to be looking for buys below the weekly opening. This is a big confluence you can use. That's the first thing you want to understand. The second thing to understand, settings from the weekly power of 3 to the daily power of 3. I want traders to understand how you can use this same indicator but with multiple time frames. So now we go to daily power of 3. So this is the daily power of 3. We can see now from the daily power of 3 what makes this trade high probability is the 3 following things, right? We understand we're below the weekly opening price. We're also below the daily opening price because the daily opening price is over here. That's step number 1. Step 2, we've tagged it to a 15-minute fair value gap. And step 3 is that we're not only below the Asian range, which is good, we've also taken out the previous day low as well, right? Price took out Wednesday's low and tapped into this range over here. So what you need to understand is once we've taken out a previous day low, and we've tapped into a higher time frame or a 15-minute fair value gap, and we're below the daily opening price, this is a golden opportunity to take longs, even though we are counter trend from the higher time frames. This is important to understand. So once we have that in place, we can now look to see how the order flow was reacting at this particular area. Okay, so let's now head down to the 5-minute time frame. So on the 5-minute time frame, I like to see how price has reacted from this area. It is on the lower time frames do I now use the 4-hour power of 3. So the 4-hour power of 3 is even more interesting, right? Let's head